As the actor, you work inside a certain set of confines, and you have a container, and that's where you make your choices. So I felt that she was doing what needed to be done. But yes.
Well, Mary can talk about how she was haunted by the idea of an airlock, but she was also the one who made it a verb.
Yes, indeed. The good thing about being an actor is that you can really enjoy committing crimes. And they, as opposed to punishing you, they give you gifts. So we lead a very odd existence.
We have to remember that what we were talking about in this program was the annihilation of the human species, where 50,000 plus human beings were escaped in a ragtag fleet, and not knowing what was left of the annihilated planets from which we came from. Under that understanding, the military had to do all military decisions at any given time. And since the president was the 214th person in line to get the presidency.
No, excuse me. Wasn't I the 43rd?
Oh, excuse me.
43rd.
43rd.
No gender bias there.
That's all right.
I'm
I
so
often
sorry.
correct him.
43rd person in line to get this job. If 42 people ahead of her were annihilated, she would get the job, and she got it. And I was in the middle trying desperately hard, under a military understanding. We needed and had to become very, very militant and very, very terroristic. We needed, like Vice President Cheney said 2 days ago, I think on Meet the Nation, he proclaimed that President Obama was handling our national security in a very weak way by doing the things he was doing, and that we are at a war. Right away, you understand exactly where he's coming from. And everybody usually says, the man's right. Many of us now are saying, because of this show and because of people experiencing different, really monumental moments of understanding of what's going on in Iraq and Afghanistan, and along the border of Mexico, which I still don't understand why the UN has not put the blue helmeted armed forces in that region, with over 5,000 women dead in since 1993. Children have been killed and raped and pillaged in that one city. And Mexico has the audacity to say that they can't control it. And yet when the military started losing their captains and their sergeants and their military, and the police started to lose to the narco traffickers, they ended up, immediately dispersing 5,000 military soldiers to the region to fight these guys. And yet, I don't, militarily, your question is, and it's answered, I took care of every single military question. I don't care what the president said. I did not listen to the president when it came to military decisions, and that is a mistake. That's not correct. And yet that was exactly what had to be done at that moment, because we were caught in a very difficult situation of inexperience, total annihilation, and a retired old man. And so it was, go ahead.
Sorry. One of the things that we wanted to sort of explore in the show, which goes to your question, was the idea of how fragile the law really is under stress and under certain circumstances. There was a Roman orator named Cicero who once said that in times of war, the law falls silent. And there was a president of the United States who once said that if the president does it, it can't be illegal. And these are things that we have to live with and understand that as much as we hold up the law and as much as we say that these laws are firm and solid and we will, we bake our civilizations on them and that we are, no man is above the law, we have to remember that in times of crisis, it does come down to human beings who decide to discard them, and that those situations do happen all around us, and we have to sort of understand how that happens and then hopefully find ways to prevent it from happening, because it's not as big a step as you might think before somebody gets chucked out an airlock.
It's really
Or airlock, as Laura would say. You get a brief glimpse into the dynamics of the set when you hear Mary talk about her character as Laura, and you hear Eddie talk about his character as I.
Let me just tell you how far this went. This is really an extraordinary, extraordinary understanding, which we're about to place on the table, and a lot of you know that it happened. We had a very difficult situation aboard the ship, where a 19-year-old youthful child was having a baby, and she didn't want to have the baby. And on Caprica, which our president was from, the law was right to choose. And I went crazy as the actor and said to her on camera, "Are you nuts? This is not going to happen. We need every single life." And at that moment, off camera, Mary was livid because it was such a difficult thing for her to take, an understanding, and be thrown into this really incredible. She knew, and she got caught in the conflict because she believes in the right to choose in her own life, as do I. But at that precise moment, we brought the show to a head-on collision with one of the most difficult situations, and at that moment, we all had to say, no more killings of any children at all, under any circumstance. Every single life that we have, we need, and we have to move forward. There is no more right to choose. And it floored the world. Nobody was ready for that.
I was.
Oh, I know you were.
Because there were only 300-400 of you.
Yeah.
So everybody, you know, I was like, hey, got to deal with it. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to move us a little bit faster, because we're having such a good time that we're kind of getting a little languid. So I want to move. I want to say thank you to you, and I would like to invite the Assistant Secretary General for Policy and Planning, Executive Office of the Secretary General on Terrorism, Mr. Robert Orr. So it's impossible to relate to the irrationality of suicide terrorism. However, the clips and the whole storyline on New Caprica really help to show that often terrorism is far from irrational. It's the response of the oppressed, the weak, the powerless against such a strong power, against a much stronger oppressor. It's the leveling of a lopsided playing field, and BSG did not flinch in dealing with such tough issues. Please take a look.
In our modern world, the threat of terrorism is an international crisis and reality. When the rules of war fall by the wayside, the results are catastrophic. During their time on New Caprica, the colonists were under the thumb